Whom the Gods Fear, by Wdowski. Chapter 15. On Rikers Island, in the midst of the East River between the Bronx and Queens, the EG's Capitol building stood since its conception in 2052. The Capitol complex consisted of three main buildings, the 30-story oblong Executive Tower, between the two domed buildings of the Forum of the People's Representatives, and the Forum of Nations Senators. It did not escape the critics of the EG that the seat of power for the Earth's global government resembled a large phallic symbol and was located on the site of a former penitentiary. The news of the venture's destruction sent shock waves through Rikers Island. Many of the national senators and people's representatives had children aboard the Dorfman luxury interstellar cruiser. More importantly, many that died aboard the venture were the children of powerful uber-rich constituents. The Venture Massacre, for days, was the headline story of the mainstream media. Xenophobia undercurrents on Earth surfaced with a vengeance and drowned out any pacifist sentiments. It had been nearly 3 generations since the Earth had experienced any military conflict. Most follow the news on social media platforms, few watch the major networks. The majority of news outlets, talking heads, and influencers were beating the drums of war. Representative Peter Aksionov from Volgograd, Russia, with the support of 26 other people's representatives as co-signers, proposed a bill to finance, in addition to the battle fleet, an assault fleet to strike the Chinese homeworld. The bill passed the Forum of People's Representatives by a margin of 76% to 20% with 4% abstentions. Upon receiving the bill, the Forum of Nations Senators passed it 301 in favor to only 3 opposed. The 3 senators that opposed the punitive assault fleet bill to end Chinese aggression were the 2 Tibetan senators and one of the Indian senators. The Indian senator that had voted with the Tibetan delegation argued by paraphrasing Mr. Graham of the 1914 Canadian House of Parliament. An eye for an eye only leads to all parties being blind. The passing of the bill meant that Earth would not be only building a battle fleet as a line of defense against a possible Chinese attack. It meant that the EG had decided to build an additional fleet capable of invading Xing with ground forces. For the first time in the 36-year history of the EG, its halls of government echoed the talk of war. The act of Chinese aggression was not going to go unanswered. The Marco Polo ran dark, shutting off all non-essential systems. The last shuttle came aboard just 2 hours before the Chinese coastal warships reached sensor range. They were now only hours from Xing 7, yet the Polo's D-mass generator was still hours from being able to make another jump. The bridge crew sat idle, only able to monitor passive sensors. All 3 Chinese ships were concentrating their sensor sweeps on the surface of Xing 7, ignoring the ring that orbited the planet. Glenn was on the bridge studying the screen that showed the progress of the Chinese ships engaging in a grid search from a lower orbit of the planet. He whispered to Rubel, "It's as if they don't think it is plausible that a starship could hide in the ring." Rubel, sitting in his command chair, was also watching the screen that their passive sensors were displaying. "No need to whisper, Jaeger. They cannot hear us," he purposely voiced loudly. "Vacuum of space and all that. Their refusal to use AI most likely doesn't give them the ability to maneuver in tight places," Commander Granite theorized. Glenn spoke in a normal tone, taking heed of Captain Rubel's point about the vacuum of space. "They also do not have our self-healing nanotech armor plating." "You sure?" Rubel seemed surprised. At the sublight speeds they travel at, a pebble they ran into could puncture their hull like a bullet. "Computer, pull up a schematic of the Chinese coastal ship." Glenn ordered the ship's computer, replacing the passive sensor image on the screen with the computer drawing of one of their ships. "Note the shield on its nose." He pointed out to Rubel. "Yeah, strange. It looks like a semi-opened umbrella. Is actually made of the shells of those creatures they eat. The shells are extremely hard and angled to deflect any particles they run into at high speeds." Glenn explained. "And they can crack those things open with their beaks?" Captain Mann did not like the idea of one of them biting down on him. "That shielding is only on the nose of their craft?" asked Commander Granite. "Is the angle that gives it the real protection." Glenn turned to Granite. "Do you fence?" "I do." "Well, then you know that just a slight movement of your wrist can position your blade to deflect your opponent's attack." Granite nodded in understanding. "It's a good design for straight runs in empty space, for the few particles they may run into." They may be faster than us, but they don't have our maneuverability, especially in tight places. Ruble realized. No, they do not. Glenn confirmed. For the first time, in a very long time, he made Captain Ruble smile. Good to know. A young officer entered the bridge from the spooky comm room. Mr. Yeager, we have received a new transmission from the President. The President? The President of what? Asked Captain Ruble. The President of Earth's global government, sir. The officer handed the decoded communique to Glenn. Glenn scanned it briefly, and then ordered the communications officer to open the PA system to the entire ship. He spoke to the crew of the Polo. I have just been handed a communication from President Mitchell Schwed. It reads, greetings to the crew and scientific teams of the Marco Polo. It is my unfortunate duty to inform you that on July 14, 2088, at 2 a.m., both forums of the legislative branch of the Earth's global government have officially declared war on the Xingnis of Xing 4 for the unwarranted attack and destruction of the unarmed cruise liner DIS Venture. At this moment of crisis, for both our worlds, as the acting supreme commander of the Earth's global government's military forces, I am empowered to commission the YS Marco Polo into the Stellar Navy. Its new designation from this time on will be EIS Marco Polo and will be under the command of Interstellar Fleet Operations at Moon Base Mare Muscovience. Commander Norman T. Granite is to take command of the EIS Marco Polo, with orders to maintain scouting operations within the Xing star system and to avoid any engagement with the enemy until relieved by elements of the First Deep Space Fleet. Our best wishes go with you all. That is the end of the message. Glenn signaled to end the ship's public announcement. I will not take command. Granite immediately responded. Executive order or not, this is your ship and your command, Mr. Yeager. Rebecca had just entered the bridge, overhearing Granite's response. That is treason, she responded. If you will not obey a direct order from the President, I will. As the highest government official on board, I am now taking command of this ship. No one will follow your orders. Ruble calmly informed Rebecca. I will only take orders from Commander Granite. In that case, Granite responded, my first order is that you and your crew continue to follow Mr. Yeager's commands. I am placing him in command until I am relieved by the Admiral of the First Fleet. This is insane. You cannot allow Yeager to remain in command, screeched Rebecca Stern. She then started shouting orders at the bridge crew. I am taking command of this vessel. I demand you make contact with those Xingni ships so I can find us a diplomatic solution. The bridge crew ignored Ambassador Stern. Do you hear me? I am ordering you to open up a communications channel with those ships, she screeched even louder, not used to her demands not being met. Glenn calmly turned to her two assistants. Please escort Miss Stern back to her cabin. They willingly both took hold of her and drag her off the bridge, kicking and threatening that she will ruin them all once she informs her father. Captain Ruble, Glenn turned to him once the bridge was free of Rebecca Stern. Hold our position here and continue to monitor the Xingnis with passive sensors until my further orders. Ruble looked to Commander Granite, who nodded an affirmative. Ruble turned his attention reluctantly back to Glenn. I, Mr. Yeager.